right, ladies and gentlemen, there has been some pretty exciting news when it comes to Wuthering Waves and some of the future plans that it actually has ahead. But those future plans, all of that news, it's been bundled together in a format that probably most people had no idea about. And so we had Narushio over here on Twitter actually going ahead, reposting, translating, and giving us the rundown of this talk. A campus interview that Kuro Games did with a couple of students over at a university. And you can see over here, this is a 48-minute video, very, very, very intense. And what we're going to be doing today is not watching it because it's going to be in Chinese and probably you don't understand it and I don't understand it either. And so the best part about all of this is that it's actually been, it's gone ahead, it's been translated. And what I wanted to do was actually break down a lot of the stuff that happened in this chat because let's be honest here, Twitter, YouTube, they've all got different audiences and it might be nice to have somebody actually walk you through this gigantic wall of text that we've got going on over here. So we're just going to go ahead, we're going to start at the top and see what that recruit interview looked like, translated by Zhu101033. Very binary name. So there's a lot of stuff over here to like the types of planning. This is more so like the conversations that they were having with some of like the direct, potential recruits, the new people joining the company themselves. And so we're not going to like get too much into it. I think they're just talking about like the responsibilities of what people will do, how they're going to like whiteboard and like brainstorm the different features that are getting added to the game, talking about using in-game mechanics, talking about level design of areas like Mount Firmament, Black Shores, Avenolium, etc., etc. I'm more so interested in not necessarily all the jobs and the recruitment and that sort of stuff because A, we're not Chinese, so we probably can't even work at the company, and B, this is like, very sort of like intense dev work. I'm interested in the actual Q&A that they had at the end of this entire interview. And I think the content that we're going to be seeing in here is actually going to be a lot more relevant for the audience. But let's go ahead, let's get right on into it, let's break it all down and see what was actually discussed in this Q&A. So, question. At the end of version 1.0, exploration felt tedious and repetitive. Although version 2.0 introduced some fresh ideas, it's hard to see how future updates can keep innovating without falling back into the same monotony. And so I think that this is definitely a take that has come to the forefront, especially after the introduction of, let's just be honest here, right? I can go into this region and, use this very cool thing over here, which lets me just fly anywhere I want, right? A lot of flexibility. That's let world design like this, which previously you'd be like, okay, I can't climb up this gigantic area. It's like, it's really bad design. Now you can just like, go freeform quite literally wherever you want in the region. And even up to like these highest peaks, right? It takes you like 20 seconds and you're like there as long as you manage your stamina, not like what I'm doing right now. And that has allowed for a lot more, again, freedom. You can go wherever you want, and it's created so much more flexibility that regions like, let's just be honest here, regions like 1.0 didn't have. However, one thing that I've seen said a lot when it comes to 1.0 is a lot of people saying that it's like borderline unplayable, that it's like the worst experience ever. It's like super, it's super unwieldy and nobody wants to ever explore it. I think that that's definitely, I would call it the opposite of rose-tinted glasses. Rose-tinted glasses are when you look back on experiences that weren't actually that good and you think of them as better than what they actually were. Usually like moments in your childhood, that sort of stuff. This is like the opposite of that situation where you look back on an experience that was actually like pretty okay and like pretty fine. And then we're saying just because what we're experiencing now is great, the stuff that we did in the past was awful. 1.0 was, in all respects, while you were playing it, one of the best exploration experiences in, like, action gaming as a whole. There's a reason why there were so many videos, while WuWa was in 1.0, comparing it to Genshin Impact, comparing it to other open world games, about how much better Kuro made exploration. And that's honestly a fact. You can just look it up on YouTube. So many videos, even a couple made by myself, talking about just how great it was and how it revolutionized the gacha space. And the thing is, right, it's because you could do stuff like you could do stuff like this. And then you have stuff like this, which could let you do more of that. And actually exploring this entire area, doing all the stuff, discovering all of the different points of interest, and, you know, actually 100%ing the map, it was great. But the thing is, when you show an audience something that's just objectively in a lot of ways better, that's going to cause some issues occasionally when people go back to the old content, or if they experience the new content first, like a lot of new players did for 2.0, it can have the adverse effect on their perception of 1.0. So I think that's the viewpoint coming over here. If you're like a day one player of this game, or you're somebody that started at 1.0 saying that it was the worst thing ever, I just, you know, I don't feel like you're giving your past experiences with the game a very fair shake. But that's just my point of view. So we got into the question over here. Now let's get into the answer. Everyone already recognized that issue in 1.0, which is why we iterated heavily in 2.0. The goal is simple: to get every planner, or really like the level designer, the devs over here, thinking. We look at everyone's interesting ideas or even creative mechanics from other games that we can integrate. These will definitely feel refreshing, so please stay tuned. It will happen for sure. And so clearly they're looking forward to future versions like 3.0, which, you know, are basically going to introduce, this is basically an answer for 3.0, that there's going to be new mechanics related to exploration that they're going to be taking from other games. And this is what I think they're going to do, personally, in 3.0. Something like this. And you all might know what this game is. I think something like this might be what they do. Because a lot of people are thinking, right, that 3.0 is going to take place in the, I believe it's called the New Federation. And that's supposed to be one of the most industrialized areas. Oh, yeah, probably you don't want that to happen. Yeah, you probably don't want that to happen. Yeah, one of the most industrialized regions in the Wuthering Waves world as a whole. And that was crazy. One thing that's going to be a part of a super industrialized region is a bunch of super tall buildings, skyscrapers, that sort of stuff. And depending on how large the map is, you can see that Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 has a bunch of buildings. This could be something that Kuro really explores, because let's be honest here, you need buildings to do all this web slinging. And so there's clearly a good reason why it wasn't in some of like the prior regions in the first place. And I think Ananta is looking to do something similar as well. And so that's even like another gacha game that it could be compared to from that outlet. But this is my take, and once again, the fact that they're really leaning on this whole everyone's interesting ideas or even creative mechanics from other games we can integrate, that's my point of view on what they might have. They could also do stuff like jetpacks, you know, like tower fantasy jetpacks. Hopefully they feel better than they feel better than those, because they kind of felt like shit, and a ton of other things in the docket. But I think this genuinely confirms that Flight is just a Renacita thing. Flight is just a 2.0 thing, and every new region, every new version that's coming after that is going to be coming with its own unique twist on the overall experience. And I think that's cool. I think that keeps the game fresh, and I think that keeps every single new region feeling more and more alive, and gives you actually a reason to go back as well. Because, you know, if you think about it this way, if you could just fly everywhere, especially in the new 3.0 region, you wouldn't be as incentivized to go back to Renacita to experience all the stuff that it has going on over there. If you're just able to use all the new stuff, or if you're able to use all the old stuff in the new regions. So now we got the next question. Older maps felt darker in tone, the background music was monotonous, and overall gameplay was dull. While Renacita was a major improvement, it felt fragmented, as if each person built something pretty in isolation. It's hard to describe the region with a unified theme. So this is actually a pretty great question, and I wanted to actually provide some of the glue over here, because I have the same exact take when it comes to 1.0. It probably has some areas with some of the worst music I've ever fucking seen. And I've got the exact place to show you right over here. And you can tell the volume in my game is off. We're going to turn it on just for this demo.
Brad salutes you.
Turn it a little bit lower. This place over here is like, it's so bad.
Listen carefully.
My compliments. Improvise.
The music here legitimately is some of like the most repetitive. I don't even think I've gotten to like the part of the track that's like really bad. But I think a lot of people who have either like echo farms or just like walked around or explored this region, they have a pretty similar take. And one thing that I would like to do or I would like these devs to do, is just go ahead and rework some of the music that's going on in regions like this, because I don't really think it even fits that well. I think there's a lot of people that have farmed like 1.0 echoes, like Void, Thunder, Fusion, Molten Rift, all of that, and it's just, it feels depressing to do it here. And I think 1.0 is the only region that really has this sort of issue. It's just dark, and even after we save Jinzhou, it stays dark. So yeah, maybe some way to like pick the music, do something like that. But echo farming, doing all that in the 1.0 region, you gotta have like something else in the background. So 100% agree with that take over there. Then there's the other part. While Renacida was a major improvement, it felt fragmented, as if each person built something pretty in isolation. And I think that's a fair take to make as well. If anybody has actually 100% in Renacida, which I haven't yet, because again, I like to make good things, good experiences last for a while. I think it's a fair take to make. And I think they have photos of everything going on over here as well. Right. So we got Ragusa City, which is a, you know, it's got like a nice industrial, or not really industrial, but like Renaissance looking vibe over here. Then you go to Alvarado Vault. You look like you're in fucking Elden Ring. Then you go to Penitent's End, and you're literally in hell with like gray skies and like destruction. Then you go to Hollowed Reach, and like now you're in like some mystical, you know, you're in like some mystical subterranean broken environment. And then you go ahead, you go to Whisperwind Haven, and it's like, okay, now you're in the sunken ruins from Warcraft 3 with like, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like some sea creatures coming out from under over here, like, you know, like some Naga sirens, that sort of stuff. Then you go to Nimbus Sanctum, and it's like now you're in heaven with like rainbows and like bubblegum and like cherry blossom trees and all of that. Then you go to, I'm not going to pronounce that. Then you go to this peninsula, and it almost looks like a continuation of like the Elden Ring area. So like this and the Alvarado Vault are kind of like the two regions that do look really, really, really similar. Then you got Thessaleo Fells, and this is like purple. This is like purple red hell. Then the Ricoli Islands, and this actually looks like it's connected to Ragusa City. So it's a lot of different clashing themes. Some people really, really, really like that, but in a lot of ways, the dramatic change in scenery can be very, very, very apparent. And I think this is one of like the biggest examples of it. When you're on the border of Penitent's End, and then you start like, you know, going from like one place to another. I think I can do it all in like one flight path. Like over here, it's like, okay, stuff's looking cool. It looks like all, you know, like these are all like the different Elden Ring areas that I was talking about. And then like, boom, I look around and now I'm in hell. Now I'm in hell. And it's like, that's a really small amount of distance relatively for such a dramatic shift. Like we got like glowing, like gold trees and stuff like that, right? And then boom, now it's like a desolate wasteland. And you have like a pond. You got like a literal pond separating the two over here. And so I can see where those take, yeah, like you can even see like now it gets like all misty and stuff, and it's a disaster, right? Not like a disaster in the sense that it looks bad, but like you literally have like oil spill, like the fucking BP oil spill happening over here and everything like that. So I can see where those concerns are coming from. So now let's go ahead and see what the answer is over here. That's true. It was indeed pieced together by many people. The disjointed feeling came from insufficient communication. And so this is something that I believe that Kuro Games kind of views as a bit more of a negative itself. I kind of view it as, I don't think there's a problem with the different regions, but if there was more of like a seamless transition between the regions that you would see more actively, instead of like, you know, a body of water and then you have like heaven and then hell on both sides, and the body of water isn't that big, maybe that would have been more of the integration that they were looking for. Next, we're aware of the issue, and we will solve it in version 3.0 or even later versions in the 2.x series. Once there's a clear theme, the sense of disjointedness won't be as strong. And so I'm not actually sure if this means that they're actually going to go back and rework some of the Renacida, the 2.0 overworld, to make it seem like more seamless and have more of a unified theme throughout, or if this just means that the future updates that are coming in later 2.x or 3.0, they'll just simply be more unified. So not entirely clear what's going on with this answer, but I think the main takeaway from this is that it's going to be better in the future. So next, how do planners decide what kind of map to make? What's the workflow? How do they decide what is going to be in the new region? So the answer is, narrative, level, quest, and programming planners all sit down together to discuss what we want to make. Everyone shares ideas one by one, and we consolidate them based on data. Clearly, they're talking to some pretty damn good people, at least recently, when they're doing that lineup and they're deciding on what to do, because let's be honest here, Avenolium is one of the most well-designed, at least in my opinion, one of the most well-designed map expansions that we've ever seen for a game before. Because in my opinion, it perfectly blends together all the different aspects like gondola usage, light, story-based exploration that like completes the map as you go throughout. And there's so many reasons to use all the different mechanics, even like these crazy like far-off islands, which would just seem like unapproachable in so many games, feels so much better with flight. It has a ton of verticality, a ton of different levels, and it just feels so good to play, right? And I think that whatever brainstorming process they did to create this part of the map, they need to keep on doing it, because I think most people universally agree 2.2 was probably the second best update they ever made for the game. I would rank the updates as 2.0, then 2.2, and then 1.3 in terms of like how great the overall contents of the updates were. Next, we got a big one over here. I'm a veteran of Wuthering Waves and Punishing Grey Raven. Ooh, bit of a grinder over here. I think the 4-person team setup, I think they mean 3, stationary dialogues, map, art, tech, and story are all great. Before Wuthering Waves came out, I used to play a lot of the competitor title, Genshin, and then includes critical feedback of Genshin probably. Yeah, this game is fucking dog shit. Yeah, it's fucking terrible, blah, you can already imagine, right? And the answer is, during development, we didn't aim to compete directly. Press X to doubt. Comparisons don't help us create anything better. Press X to doubt. We're focused on what we can do and what we're good at. I think this is kind of just the public stance that Kuro Games has towards comparison. I think that they probably just don't want to get yelled at by the CCP. That's just my take. That's just my point of view. This entire answer over here, gigantic. Press X to doubt. I think this is just the PR answer, because I don't think it's a good look, especially in like China, where, you know, the company is headquartered, right? To be going ahead and you know, having this sort of like direct attack against Hoyoverse, because as we're all aware, right, Kuro Games got cyber attacked. Kuro Games gets mass reported by Hoyo fans. They get mass reported by XJJ on a pretty regular basis, especially when the game started getting a lot bigger. And I don't think they necessarily want to stoke the flames in a public address like this, and they're just trying to lay low. I think this answer is 100% PR speak and like not actually true at all. That's just my take on it, though. You can take their word for it. I can't blame them for not necessarily telling the truth here. It is what it is. And the last one. Question. For the anniversary event, it seems like there was a disconnect between the company's and players' expectations. Ooh, and we all know that CN was literally one of the biggest sort of like proponents of the bad news behind the anniversary. Who knows how much of the complaints were legitimate? We already know in EN on Global, there was a lot of Hoyo shills actively brigading the anniversary, some legitimate complaints as well, but there's direct confirmation from a lot of different parties it was actively brigaded. And when we know that Hoyo shills were literally reporting in 2.2, mass reporting, they're trying to mass report again for 2.4, you know, it's definitely something for them to keep in mind, right? Especially in CN, knowing how far they're willing to push the envelope when it comes to stuff like this. And the answer is, yes, version 2.3 didn't do well. We've already apologized. Yeah, that was the 30 polls that they gave out. It was an issue. For the next anniversary, we'll take it more seriously. Okay, so this is basically Kuro Games putting all of the cards on the table and saying that the second anniversary for this game is absolutely going to leave no questions. Or it should leave absolutely no questions as to how good it actually is. And, you know, to a degree, I think we gotta hold them to their word. 1 year from now, on April 29th, or whatever the live stream for version 3.7 or 3.8 or 4.3, whatever version it is announced, it should be an absolute banger. Operations is aware of the problem. We're learning and growing with each mistake. Everyone encounters problems, but we accept them and improve. That's the best feedback we can give our players. And so clearly, right, it's a little bit too early to talk about what they're going to be doing on the second anniversary, but we can just imagine that probably they'll do something like a free 5-star of some kind. Maybe they'll make like a special anniversary unit. There's a lot of stuff that's been put on like the drawing board for there, and we'll just have to see what actually comes through. but they're promising quite a bit over here. And so we'll just have to see what ends up happening. I think the biggest anniversary gift that Kuro Games can give the players right now is pretty simple. And it's something that they've actually been doing for quite a while. Just don't power creep all the older fucking units, right? Make everybody usable. Release new units that buff the older ones to a good degree as time goes on. Make it so that if I pull Jian, if I pull Yinlin, if I pull Zhang Liao on this 1.0 anniversary, or really the 2.3 anniversary, I'm still able to use them in version 3.3, in version 3.4, in version 3.5. I think that's one of the greatest gifts that they can give the player base, because boy, oh boy, is that not the case in other games. And it's quickly becoming a massive nightmare when you had one of the biggest games in the space, like Genshin Impact, going ahead and managing power creep so well across 4 years, and then in the last 6, 7, 8 months, it's all gone to shit in every single game. Like, HSR has dog shit balance, started over a year ago. ZZZ also has dog shit balance, where like, oh, God forbid you pull Zhu Yan or Ellen. Everyone just does more damage than them. And it's like, okay, like, ZZZ hasn't even been out a year yet and it's already doing this shit. While WuWa is kind of WuWa currently is the only big 4 gacha game on the market where your 1.0 units are like still viable, they're still good. Like the 1.1 units are also still viable and still good, and it doesn't feel like absolute dog shit to play them, and that's because they've managed the power levels and the endgame difficulty so well. So I would just say keep on doing that, and don't provide all of these incentives to like disregard and just throw away all the older members of the roster, right? Because I think the one thing players hate the most is seeing all of that past investment, everything that they've, put into the game, mean nothing because of decisions outside of their control. And that's something that's happened in pretty much... Why does she have nothing? That's something that's happened in pretty much every single Hoyoverse title. It just feels like shit. And I think that's one thing WuWa, after a year of service, has done so incredibly well, because this bro is still one of my favorite characters to use. He still absolutely ass wipes all of the content in the game, and they even release game modes where he's literally top tier, like tier 1, SSSSS. So with that, that's my overview of all of the stuff that we just saw in that post. That's my overview of the Q&A. Hopefully we brought some glue to that discussion and it was helpful for all of you all to see it. So with that, let me know what you all think. Peace.